Another pattern that I see a lot of is that of what I affectionately think of as the boxer. And so the boxer's challenge and their way of coping with stress is that closeness is particularly difficult. So for some people, they desperately want to merge. They've got this Hollywood idea of being soulmates and they're trying to be nice all the time. And so they're just idealizing closeness. For the boxer, closeness is a potential threat. Closeness doesn't feel strengthening. It feels like when we're close, if you're going to get in the ring with a boxer, what the hell do you expect is going to happen? They're going to start throwing punches. Now, if you've been part of a boxing community, you'll know that these communities are about safety. Martial arts communities are about supportive cultures of safety and refining all the details of how do you keep yourself safe. And so there's a great camaraderie, and it's really strengthening that we're going to share this vulnerability and we're going to learn how to be strong and safe together. What the boxer does is when they're triggered, it's very confusing for other people and they get judged very, very harshly because any of that aggression when they're afraid and not feeling safe comes across as a direct attack to other people or to family members and loved ones. And so the challenge here is for some people, they need to learn to harden up. They need to learn how to stand on their own 2 feet, face some of their fears, and deal with some things by themselves. For the boxer, the challenge is, if someone else gets in the ring, you've got the skills to be able to go on the attack, but how do you give them space? How do you allow there to be some closeness for you to feel the sense of any anxiety or a threat, and for you to work into those sensitivities? Again, for the boxer, if they're being punched or hit or kicked with another style or choked or something like that, they learn just to shut that out. And so it's like there's all these parts of them in terms of their vulnerability that have just either been shut down or have never been engaged with. And so it feels anti-survival to go into those positions of softness and closeness. And that's what triggers the alarm and the aggression. And so our challenge is to actually work into some of those areas of sensitivity, some of those areas of softness. And then eventually at a really high level to be able to say, this doesn't come so naturally to me, but this is the area where I feel uncomfortable, where I feel judged, where I feel threatened. So we start teaching some of that language, which then in a way becomes a different type of skill, just like a boxer would throw a combination of punches that just becomes second nature. We can also teach the language of sensitivity, of vulnerability, of tenderness, which a lot of these people are surprisingly capable of, that you would never know, but surprisingly capable of if they're given the opportunity to actually learn that. And if they've seen that pattern over and over again, then they're in a place where it's just like, I need some lessons. Just like someone who's been beaten up might need to learn self-defense. For someone who has had this reactive stance under pressure, they can get to the stage where they acknowledge that, I need to learn a different language of closeness, because I don't want to see this happen in my family, and I don't want to see this happen with my kids. And to be honest, it's often absolutely heartbreaking to see people who are just really deeply loving people, but this pattern under pressure is causing them and the people around them a great deal of pain. And so I've worked with a lot of people who have benefited from that. And then, we see some of those other little patterns in the background come out, and we learn to deal with those as well. So, I've got a lot of respect for anyone who's got this pattern. The other thing that we often see is that the way it works is that when we go into flight or fight, which what happens in this boxer's pattern, the front of the brain gets turned off. So it's the language center. So that place where we process feelings, where we talk about our feelings, we use our emotional intelligence, which these people often have, is to be able to process our feelings and be aware of someone else's feelings. All that gets turned off. And so our challenge is that after the dust settles, and family members, for example, might come back and want to discuss what's happened, this person doesn't really have a record of it. So it's like once the switch has been flipped, they can't go back and process the details of that because they either don't remember or it's just, frankly, it's like it's just a bit of a blur. And so often they might sound insensitive if they say, well, you shouldn't have pushed me. You shouldn't have been picking on me. You shouldn't have. And so it appears as though they don't have any capacity to go back and discuss what happened. But with a little bit of individual support, often they've been hurting and we can start to develop that language. If it was in a couples counselling situation, that would be certainly the case where we would be working individually with that person to try to develop some of that language before we came back together. And so really, in that process, we're looking to develop a language around that tenderness, sensitivity, vulnerability. And then in that process with the therapist, there are occasions where it doesn't make sense. It's far more comfortable to go back to the battle if there's a common enemy outside. And so when people engage in therapy, it might be because of a partner or a work occasion where something's gone wrong and there's a problem to focus on. Once that calms down, then some of the closeness of therapy itself can be a real challenge. So that's part of what we work out together. But if we've got a way of framing that from the beginning, and we can track it, then we can do that together where it's not a surprise, where any of that discomfort doesn't come back up in an out of control sort of way. And we can actually find the levels of the progress that we're making and provide some praise. And some real competence, once we've got a path towards competence, then it's like this is meaningful and we can keep going. So yeah, if that's something that's an issue for you or for a member of your family or someone that you love, very happy to give some feedback around that. And sometimes it's really quite fascinating to see. It really is the sad part that if we're judged because of a skill set that we haven't developed, it's really quite radical to see what can happen when we actually give that some nourishment, some care and some direction. A lot of that tenderness does come out. And I've got to say, in couples counselling, that is just the most amazing thing to witness. That someone has been cast as a Frankenstein or cast as just purely aggressive, to make clear statements about where they're hurting or about any of their vulnerabilities or their need for care or where they've felt neglected. And then to see their partner really, be able to give that, and this person develop the opportunity to receive it is just magical. So the message is, don't give up on yourself or your partner or other people. Of course, if there are safety issues, they've got to come first. But my message is that even though it might not look like it, the potential rate of change, if people have suffered and they're motivated, got a little bit of insight, the change that can occur is quite amazing. So yeah, if you're curious about talking about that at all, let me know, and of course, very happy to help.